that work? Oh, yeah, that works. I'm going to call the regularly scheduled meeting of the Community Development and Regulatory Services together. And we're starting with a resolution honoring our good friend and longtime contributor to the city, Carolyn Roby. So if you'd come up, Carolyn. Do you want to say something first?
Well, I'm delighted to be able to be here too, to honor Carolyn and just thank you. We have so many good citizens in our community that go above and beyond, help us with issues that we have, but contribute so much to our city. And so Carolyn is one of them. So Lisa's going to read the resolution, which will detail her work in our city.
Allow us to embarrass you. No, we won't. Honoring Carolyn Roby for 22 years of service to the Minneapolis Workforce Council. Whereas Carolyn began her career at Northwestern National Bank of Minneapolis in 1980, and she is a trusted colleague who has been committed, connected, and invested in helping Wells Fargo have a positive impact on the community with its team members and customers. Carolyn had been with community relations for most of her career, helping Wells Fargo navigate many challenges, including many name changes and mergers. Whereas Carolyn has served on numerous Wells Fargo initiatives and task forces over the years, in addition to her leadership in the community. Most recently, Carolyn led Wells Fargo's Market Priorities Work Group as part of the Strategic Philanthropic Steering Committee, which will provide an important roadmap and tools for market leaders and team members to do more focused giving in their communities. And whereas Carolyn serves as a board member of the Opus Foundation, and whereas Carolyn has served as a board member of the Minnesota Council on Foundations, the Children's Theater Company, and the Loft, whereas Carolyn served on the Minneapolis Workforce Council since 1994, which is longer than the two of us have been on the city council, so that says something, and has been chair for 10 of those years. Whereas through her work on the Minneapolis Workforce Council, Carolyn has continued to keep Minneapolis residents' interests at the forefront of many iterations of employment and training programs over the years, with her leadership and focus on equity and employment, helping thousands of Minneapolis residents find career paths and reach self-sufficiency. And whereas Carolyn has played an integral role in developing and supporting an effective network of community-based service delivery organizations within our city. And whereas under Carolyn's active leadership, the City of Minneapolis Employment and Training has earned numerous awards, commendations, certificates of appreciation and recognition for outstanding service delivery, efficiency, and effectiveness, most notably our recognized Step Up program, providing 21,000 internships since its inception. And whereas Carolyn has earned the respect of her colleagues in workforce development for her unwavering commitment to a responsive, high-quality, community-based delivery system. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Minneapolis and the City Council that we commend Carolyn for her years of outstanding service with Wells Fargo and the Minneapolis Workforce Council, and her commitment to deliver world-class employment and training services to residents, employers in Minneapolis, and for her untiring work on behalf of the well-being of families, youth, neighborhoods, communities, and the state to close Minnesota's economic and employment disparities. We also wish you lots of happiness and all that stuff. And, be happy when you're not working with us. But maybe now that you're not working with us, we have a few more ideas of things that you might be able to do as a volunteer. So so we'll give you this. Yeah. Yay. Okay. It's really just very unusual to have someone of your incredible passion and commitment and integrity doing so much work for the city for such a very long period of time, especially as a volunteer in a leadership role where so many people learned from you and benefited from your work. So we are just deeply unhappy that you're leaving. And we'll try to recruit you to do something else unless you tell us now you're moving to Florida. But short of that, we might be looking for something else for you to do to help us, because when you have someone good, you hang on. So thank you very much for your commitment. And I'm going to let Carolyn say a few words. I'll note that there is a reception this afternoon at 4 o'clock at CPED, and everyone is invited to come and, I don't want to say goodbye, but thank Carolyn for the work that she's done.
Well, thank you so much, Councilmember Goodman and Councilmember Johnson. You have both been leaders that I have admired and have guided me in this work. And this recognition is truly, it has been an honor and a privilege to do this work for 22 years. And the 22 years has gone by in a heartbeat. But I also want to thank the mayor and the city council members and the community development committee, and it's just been an extraordinary adventure. And I want to thank all of my colleagues from Wells Fargo who are here. Thank you, Wells Fargo, and my colleagues in the city. The city has an extraordinary staff at Minneapolis Employment and Training, and I thank you for your engagement and involvement, Deb, and formerly Mike and David. And so I'm passionate about the work that this council does, and it's, as I've said many times before, it's even more important now, given the extraordinary economic success of Minnesota and the Twin Cities and Minneapolis and our neighborhoods. Our attention and focus on closing the disparity gap is even more important. And the talent that is in these families and neighborhoods and individuals is so extraordinary. I know that the leadership of Workforce Council in the future, which is going to be Laura Beath, will succeed in even more extraordinary ways. So thank you so much. This is truly a great honor. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so item number 1 is the presentation of the honor for Carolyn Roby, and we have completed that. So I'll move the consent agenda, which is items number 7 through 17. Is there any items anyone would like to pull for discussion or comment or question? On which item? On item number 9, Councilmember Cano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that I'm really happy to see the City of Minneapolis continue its support for Homeline to provide services in various languages to our more than half renter population in our city. And as we make efforts to grow our city, to have us be a cosmopolitan hub for the Midwest, I think it's really important to continue to support the renters in our city. I myself am a renter. I remember when I used to live in Prospect Park, I actually tried to call Homeline. This is back when I was in college to get help, but at the time they didn't actually have any funding to support people in Minneapolis, so they weren't able to support me. But I'm really happy to be here years later as a council member approving an item that will help people in our city live better and have access to more legal support to ensure that they have stable housing. Thank you.
Great. On the motion to approve all of the consent items 7 through 17, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those items are approved. We'll move on to our public hearing agenda, starting with item number 2. Mr. Wilson.
Madam Chair, the application before us is an extended hours of operation license for Holiday Station stores for one particular store at 1617 Broadway Street Northeast. They're currently licensed as a gasoline filling station, grocery, and tobacco dealer. They are located in a L1 industrial zone. Their current hours of operation allowed by ordinance are from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. during the week. They are seeking a 24-hour extended hours license for a business that will be attended by employees at all times. The management of this particular store met with the commander of the 2nd Precinct, and they reviewed their security measures. They have a very high-quality security camera system and cash management system that was approved by the police commander. The station has operated at this location and at many other locations, and there's been no complaints or violations reported at this location at all. A public hearing is required for this application, and we did notify all residents and property owners within 300 feet of the premises. We also notified the Northeast Minneapolis Chamber of Commerce, Mid-City Industrial Neighborhood Association, and from that mailing and notification process, we received no responses for or against the application. Staff's recommendation is that you issue this extended hours license.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wilson on item number 2? Seeing none, thank you for your report. We'll open the public hearing on item number 2, which is an extended hours license for Holiday Station stores at 1617 Broadway Avenue Street Northeast. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move approval of item number 2.
Item number 2 has been moved for approval. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on to item number 3. Mr. Wilson.
Madam Chair, we have an application by Kiki Shamu Inc., doing business as La Fresca Restaurant. They are located at 4750 Grand Avenue South. They are a full-service restaurant licensed with an on-sale wine and strong beer, Class E. They are seeking a permanent expansion of premises for an outdoor patio to be located on private property. This restaurant has operated here since 2013. They are seeking an expansion for an outdoor patio that will be on private property. They're in the Tangletown neighborhood in Ward 11. They're zone C1. The seating will be expanded in the outdoor area by 32 seats. No changes to the inside of the premises. Proposed hours of operation are from 7 a.m. to midnight, both on the interior and exterior of the premises. Public hearing is required for this expansion. We notified all residents and property owners within 300 feet of the business, and we notified the Tangletown Neighborhood Association and the Nicollet East Harriet Business Association. We did receive 3 responses from that mailing. 1 was in support of the application and 2 were opposed. The opposing responses that we received related directly to parking on the block, and we're afraid that this will allow additional customers to park on the block. This application seems to meet all of our requirements, and staff's recommendation is that you approve the application.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wilson on item number 3? Seeing none, this is a public hearing on item number 3, which is an expansion of premise for La Fresca at 4750 Grand Avenue. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
I teach at MCTC, so I'm used to talking to students. I don't know. I've never talked before a
Well,
council.
perhaps
such as
start by
this, so.
stating your name and address.
Bill Hendricks. I live at 4749 Grand Avenue South. A little nervous. I'm not supposed to say that, but I am. First of all, I purchased the property. My partner and I purchased the property in 1978. During that time, we have worked with all businesses in our neighborhood. We have an easement that we granted Barb and Neil, who bought the property that faces next door to us, that faces 48th. We have watched over the properties across the street when it was owned by Dr. Goldstein. We have been good neighbors. We're lucky enough to have good neighbors next to us, Patrick as well. I realize and I understand that you guys are bound by laws and zoning laws, and I understand that. The situation is in our neighborhood, and I found this out with my students at MCTC, working with a very diverse population, is that one size doesn't fit all. And in our neighborhood, even though we're on Grand, we're not 38th and Grand, we're not 46th and Grand, we're not Lake and Grand, we are a residential neighborhood. And I know that the zoning laws in our area are the same as 38th and Grand, 46th and Grand. However, we are a residential neighborhood. We have our duplex directly across the street. And I did some research this morning, and City of Minneapolis has 1.5 cars per living unit. In our building alone, we have, in a duplex, we have 3 cars. City of Minneapolis in 1930s blocked my driveway. I can get 1 car in there. Patrick, he has a 4-plex, 2 cars. The 4-plex next to them, 2 cars. Now, I know this is, it kind of overlaps. However, we are a family neighborhood. All of our units are 2-bedroom. That means that we could have 2 adults. We could have 2 adults with 2 children. And that means groceries. That means schlepping kids. That means schlepping packages to these units. I would not have any objection to this if their restaurant faced 48th Street. However, it faces Grand Avenue, and it is 3 doors into the block. We have already experienced parking issues. When I rent my apartment, and my building was built in 1927, and we and Patrick and everybody else in the neighborhood spend a lot of money making sure that our residents have good accommodations. But the first question that I get, what's the parking like? I don't want to lie to them. In the evening, we're lucky to be able to find parking on 48th Street. Now, I understand from your office, Councilman Quincy, thank you so much. Okay, that currently the restaurant houses 36 seats. You guys, the zoning says it is okay to expand to 32 seats, and they're only required to have 4 parking spots. So my question to the zoning council, or to you, in all fairness to the residents of our community, is how can we double the size of the restaurant? And if you do a simple math, that means that 2 people coming in to our neighborhood in a car, that means 16 more cars in my neighborhood. Hector has been a good neighbor. And I have to give him credit for that. However, he has constantly operated outside the box. I learned today that when he originally applied for this license, he said there was going to be no outdoor seating. You'll notice that there has been, ever since he moved in, and the tenants and the owners have never complained. The only reason that he applied for this license is because he expanded without talking to us. To me, that's not a good neighbor. I'm asking for a couple of things. Number one, I've talked to, again, the councilman's office has been great. Diana in critical parking has been great. Julie, is that her name? Okay. She has been fabulous. Okay. I have no complaints with the city. I really don't. But I am asking you to do a couple of things. Number one, let us work with the critical parking. Get the critical parking set. I talked to Little Bird. I talked to Jane Caplow. Is that her? Caplow. I talked to Jody and Little Bird. I talked to Charlie's Bike Shop.
Sir, we're not here to discuss critical parking. We're just here on this
Okay,
application.
but
Can you
anyway,
try
I'm
to sum
just
it up?
saying that the owners would, all I'm asking you to do is slow this process down. When they moved into our neighborhood, they had a hearing at Fuller Park. Now they're doubling the size of the restaurant, and what you did is you set a meeting in the middle of the day, and yeah, you could write, I understand that. But why not a public hearing in our community? Why double the seats now when nobody can attend? Anyway, so delay it, or at the very least, cut the number of additional seats down to 16 rather than the 32. I think that would be fair.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue?
My name is Pat Maney. I own 4745 Grand, and I've owned that for approximately 40 years. I am opposed to the expansion of the restaurant, and as I learned today also, that all of the seating was supposed to be within the building, and now he's expanded out, and now he wishes to expand even more. When I saw the addition decking being built, I stopped and asked, I said, does anyone here have a building permit for this? Well, no. And I said, well, how can you expand this without getting a building permit? Well, he doesn't have to follow the rules, I guess, or decided he'd just bend them a little bit. And maybe he's been able to do that all along, but this time he's going to be called on it. And I think it's unfair for me as a property owner to give up street parking that I had in front of the building for 40 years to someone so that they can generate additional profit for their business. The first question I get from people moving into my building is, how is the parking? And it used to be, even when I lived there, you could always manage something within a couple of doors down. It's no longer that way. It's changed a lot since this restaurant has gone in. Not that I don't think restaurants are good, but they should have their parking.
Okay, so did you have anything different to add? You don't like the fact that there's not more parking associated with the expansion?
I do have something
Okay,
additional.
you have 1 minute.
Pardon me?
You have 1 minute.
Oh, all right. Well, one of the predominant things is that I would like a reduction in my taxes since I don't have the parking that I used to have.
But you're not entitled to a parking spot on the street, so I probably wouldn't come in and start demanding that kind of thing.
Since the city is allowing this expansion, then I think that the Fuller Park across the street, that should be paved and we should have additional parking over there. That's a good solution. That's public property. There's no reason that can't be used. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Jeff Miller, and I'm at 4744 Grand Avenue South. It's a 3-unit townhome building. I own one of the units, and I am president of the association that manages the building. My concern somewhat is parking, but more so with the control over the patrons that visit the restaurant. My building is immediately next to La Fresca. We share property line as part of the yard. I've got a sidewalk going up to my front door, and upon numerous occasions, I've got patrons who are waiting for a seat at the restaurant, loitering on my property, cigarette butts strewn everywhere on multiple occasions. People thinking that it's more of a park rather than a private residence. Bikes parked in my yard. Bikes parked on my sidewalk. Kids getting up from who are there with their mothers outside who are ringing our doorbell multiple times while I'm not home. My wife is home, and the mothers are doing nothing about it. Parking-wise, I've had my driveway blocked 3 times with a car blatantly parked right in front of my driveway. On one occasion, I missed a very important appointment because I could not get out of my driveway. Now, that's with the existing non-permitted patio that we have out there right now that Hector has been having people enjoy outdoor seating. Now, I can only imagine how worse this is going to get, expanding it twofold. When we saw him expand the patio and start building that, it was just, okay, here we go. It's only going to get worse. I've even gone out and mowed my lawn after a 10-hour day at work and found that the patrons on the patio were telling me, don't mow your lawn now. We're having dinner. Okay, when am I going to mow it? I've had a waiter from the restaurant come running over onto my yard telling me to stop mowing my lawn because it's interfering with the diners. Now, I bought the place in 2006, so almost 10 years ago. And we knew that there was businesses at that corner of the street, but they were all closed-in businesses. Nobody entertaining guests out on the front. And I'm just very, very concerned that going forward, if this expansion happens, it's just going to make our place uninhabitable and pretty much unmarketable. Nobody's going to want to live next to a circus. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, afternoon. I'm Inspector Ruiz. I own La Fresca and a couple of businesses in Minneapolis. So, for the outdoor patio that I'm proposing is because, in the summer hours or the summer, mostly of the restaurant, they'll be sitting like Cafeína perhaps. The patio is full, but the restaurant inside is empty. It doesn't change that. So, the way I say, try to be, run a more unique restaurant that I could try to, have these prevent issues and stuff. I did it, so that's what I'm proposing to expand for that for, in the summer, where I say people they sit down outside, not inside. So it's not, it would be overcrowded. So it would be pretty much the same seating like in the during winter and fall. So that's all I can say. I can run, the best that I can the businesses. So that's all it is. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Obviously, we started hearing some of the concerns from neighborhoods, so I appreciate everybody contacting our office as quickly as they have as part of this public hearing. Certainly, I've appreciated the willingness with Mr. Ruiz to work with neighbors on past issues. I think he's been a terrific restaurant. I know he has a lot of local support from the neighborhood, and people do walk and enjoy the restaurant. It's very, very popular. And I would just kind of follow up with Mr. Ruiz's comments that, in fact, this outdoor seating is not going to double the capacity of the restaurant of who they'll be serving. The impact, I don't think, will be greatly changed. But I am very sensitive to the parking concerns. I know these residents in the neighborhood, we can't grow a street, and we can't pave over a park, but they don't have enough parking as well. So there's parking concerns all over the neighborhood. And so I thought one of the considerations and conditions that we worked with Mr. Ruiz through everybody's concerns is to make sure that their employees, in fact, if they would be willing not to park on Grand Avenue and seek outside parking, there seems to be sufficient on 48th. We might be able to accommodate it that way. And they also indicated that they would try to have other customers and others park away from the restaurant, leaving accommodating space for as many residents in the neighborhood on Grand Avenue. So I'd like to move approval of the expansion of premises permit with the appreciation of the restaurant itself, but with an additional business operating conditions, business license operating conditions that employees of La Fresca will not park vehicles on Grand Avenue during their work shifts, and commercial vehicles will not unload products on Grand Avenue for La Fresca. And hopefully those would continue to solve the main focus of the issues facing the residents. And also like to say, in addition to those official permit or conditions, we look forward for the Hector and his staff to continue to work with neighbors on specific issues affecting operations. So I'd like to move those items.
On the motion by Councilmember Quincy, are there further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll then move on to item number 4. Mr. Wilson.
Madam Chair, we have an application by Uptown Hospitality, Inc. For to be a new proprietor at 2901 Hennepin Avenue in the former Walker Library building. And the business will be known as the Mansion at Uptown. They are seeking an on-sale liquor license with Sunday sales Class B. This location has previously housed other on-sale alcohol licenses, including Brian's Seafood Casa, the Walker Library, the Pagoda, and in the most recent years, it's been a fitness and yoga center. The applicant is applying for the on-sale liquor license Class B to operate as a full-service restaurant plus an event center for public and private events. They will have 2 outdoor areas, and they will be operated strictly as Class E licensed areas, which means no live entertainment in the outdoor areas. This is in the Lowry Hill East neighborhood in Ward 10, and it is Zone C3A, the appropriate zoning for this use. They have a parking requirement. The zoning administrator has determined that this business needs 30 off-street parking spaces, and they have leased those in the Mosaic parking ramp. They will have seating on the inside for 190 persons and exterior seating for 148 persons. They intend to be open from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. 7 days a week. The 100% owner of this corporation is Steve Hark. He also owns the Minneapolis Event Center just off Main Street Southeast, Fine Line Music Cafe, and the Aqua Nightclub at 400 First Avenue North. A public hearing is required because the premises are expanded to outdoor areas that weren't licensed before. We noticed all property owners within 600 feet. We posted multiple family residential dwellings with hearing notices. We also notified the Lowry Hill East, Carrig, Echo, and East Isles neighborhood groups. We also notified the Uptown Business Association and the Lake Street Council. From that notification process, we received one notification or one response that is in support, and that is from the Lake Street Council. Staff has reviewed this carefully, and we recommend that you issue this license.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wilson on item number 4? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 4, which is a new business at a very old location. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Mr. Hark, do you want to say something? Come on. You're lucky people aren't here to say anything to you. So I'll just note this is across the street from my ward, and I am praying that you can make something of this beautiful historic building. A lot of people received notice of this, and we didn't get any calls or comments of concern. And there are many residents that live very close to it.
Commenting on the mansion in Uptown at the old Walker Library. So we're excited. It's a beautiful building. Adding the outdoor element in Uptown adds value to the building. And we've done about 50 tours of the building for potential clients for weddings and corporate events. And we've received a great response back. Everybody's excited, waiting for the building to be done to book their weddings and corporate events. We actually have about 4 weddings already booked after August. So we're excited. The neighbors are excited. We've seen a great response. People walking by, seeing that building coming back to life, and was the outdoor landscaping being done. It's going to be definitely back to what it's supposed to be.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Is there anyone else here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Mr. Hark and his entire business entity has shown the ability to run a very reputable and well-functioning entity, I'm very happy to move this item forward for approval.
Approval has been moved of item number 4. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on to item number 5. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have an application for an extended hours of operation license by TA's Automotive LLC. They are located at 4554 Chicago. And they are currently a gasoline filling station, motor vehicle repair center in a C2 zoning district. They are allowed currently to be open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and on Friday and Saturday they can be open until 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. It's in the Regina neighborhood in 8th Ward. This gas station is seeking 24 hours of operation, but for unattended gasoline sales as opposed to attended gasoline sales. So customers will come up, use a credit card, be able to buy gas, but they will not be able to go into the station itself to buy convenience food items or anything like that. So it's a little different. It should be a little quieter. Stations that do this have a series of equipment they need to install. They need an emergency pump shutoff valves that are easily quick access to the pump islands. They have emergency police call buttons and fire call buttons, fire extinguishers, things like that. This station has complied with all of those fire department requirements. But a public hearing is required for the extended hours license. We did notify all residents and property owners within 300 feet of the gas station. We also notified the South Chicago Business Alliance and the Field Regina Northrop Neighborhood Association. As of today, we have received no responses for or against the application. They seem to meet all of the requirements, and staff's recommendation is that you approve it.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wilson on this item? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 5, which is a new license at TA's Automotive on Chicago Avenue. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move approval of item number 5.
Item number 5 has been moved for approval. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on to our final item, which is item number 6. Mr. Wilson.
Madam Chair, item 6 is an application by the Normandy Inn Hotel seeking a sidewalk cafe license. They are in the downtown west neighborhood in Ward 7. They are seeking a 24-seat outdoor sidewalk cafe on the city sidewalks adjacent to their building along 4th Avenue and 8th Street South. The design of the cafe has been reviewed by our Public Works Transportation engineers, and they have approved the design of that cafe. We notified residents and property owners within 450 feet of this hotel. We also notified the Downtown Minneapolis Neighborhood Association and the Warehouse District Business Association. We received 4 responses from that notification process. All 4 were in support of the application, and staff's recommendation is that you approve it.
Any questions for staff on item number 6? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 6, which is an expansion of premises for the Normandy Kitchen. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Mike, this is your chance. Come on. You're doing something cool. Brag about it.
Thank you, Councilmember Goodman. Mike Noel, Normandy Inn. And we are doing some improvements to the Normandy Inn this summer. And the most prevalent piece of it is doing a facade restoration on our primary corner of 8th and 4th Avenue South. And the Normandy it's had many lives since it was opened in 1925, but originally it was a red brick building with huge storefront windows. So we're restoring those. It will bring great, I think, vibrancy to that corner, along with our new sidewalk cafe, which has all been designed by Jim Smart. So it's going to be really cool, and it's going to bring some life to that kind of concrete-y, lifeless corner. So I'm really looking forward to having it open. And thank you very much.
Thank you for everything you're doing to improve this property and for all your work in a volunteer capacity for the city as well.
Thanks very much.
Further comments? Anyone else like to speak to this issue? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I'll move approval. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. Our remaining item is item number 18. Ms. Kimball, welcome.
Chair Goodman, members of the committee, I have just a brief presentation. From 2008 through 2011, the City of Minneapolis received funding through 3 rounds of Neighborhood Stabilization Program funding and contracted 2 NSP awards through Minnesota Housing and 3 NSP awards through the Department of Housing and Urban Development for a total of 5 contracts. The City of Minneapolis utilized NSP funding to address vacant, abandoned, and foreclosed property in neighborhoods most impacted by foreclosure and vacancy, and it was a key component of the Minneapolis Foreclosure Recovery Plan. Activities funded included funding for homebuyer assistance, redevelopment gap that created new housing units for households at or below 120% of area median income, land banking and demolition of abandoned, foreclosed, or vacant property, and program administration. Since its last appropriation of program income funds, the City of Minneapolis has earned $983,526.89 across its 5 grant awards. A breakout for each grant is included in the detail of the request for council action. NSP rules require that program income received is spent in accordance with the geographic boundaries, activities, and obligations described in its respective NSP contracts. In addition to program income earned, Minnesota Housing allocated a total of $1,197,824.09 of NSP1 funds to the City of Minneapolis due to its exceptional performance as an NSP administrator. As a condition of the additional appropriation, Minnesota Housing required that the funds be restricted to constructing new housing on land bank property that was originally financed through Minnesota Housing's NSP or Strategic Acquisition Fund. As a result, staff intends to utilize all remaining funds that are part of the City of Minneapolis and Minnesota Housing NSP1 contract as a Green Homes North funding round. Historically, the NSP program has had caps of $60,000 for development gap and $7,500 for homebuyer assistance for housing development activities. Funds have typically been used to pay for the rehabilitation of existing structures. Moving forward, because staff intends to use remaining NSP funds across all 5 grants to construct new housing on land bank property, we are requesting that we adjust the caps of our NSP program. New construction housing typically has higher project costs than rehabilitation of existing structures. In our historic Green Homes North rounds, the average subsidy request was $100,000 collectively, and we were historically using about half of our funds from Minnesota Housing and about half of our funds from the City of Minneapolis. So the total request was $100,000, and roughly 50-50 was split by 2 different organizations. In this case, we're requesting an adjustment to $70,000 because in the most recent round of Green Homes North, our average subsidy request was $70,000. And again, because we're exclusively using Minnesota Housing funds, then that full $70,000 would be paid through our Minnesota Housing funding that we've received. Although there are signs of the housing market improving in North Minneapolis, housing values have still not fully recovered to pre-recession levels, particularly in neighborhoods where a majority of the NSP vacant lots are owned by the City of Minneapolis. Due to the market realities of the cost of new construction projects and sale prices in the neighborhoods proposed, staff is recommending that we adjust the cap for development gap on new construction homes to $70,000. A consequence of not approving this increase in the cap amount could result in lesser quality housing units constructed in the north side. Finally, the adjustment of homebuyer assistance from $7,500 to $5,000 will align the NSP program with the Homeownership Opportunity Minneapolis program and reduce our per property funding obligations. I'll take any questions at this time.
Are there any questions? Can you explain to me how we guarantee homeownership and over what period of time?
Yep. The NSP program requires that every home sold through Green Homes North or that's financed with NSP funds, that every home buyer have either a recapture provision, which is secured with the home buyer assistance. So we provide $5,000 and require a 5-year affordability period or home buyer occupancy period that's secured with that $5,000. Alternatively, it is possible for some organizations such as City of Lakes Community Land Trust or Habitat for Humanity that have longer term affordability mechanisms for the sale of their homes to do a declaration of covenants that is tied to the total amount of assistance that's provided to the construction of the home. And so in those cases, it could be a 10 to 20-year affordability period.
So they're only being sold for home ownership.
Correct.
Right. So we've checked to see if anyone in the Green Homes North early phases has taken out a rental license or any of these projects have turned into rental housing.
I don't know that we have checked. However, we have required as a component of the Green Homes North program that all of the houses are sold for home ownership, and we've secured it with a mortgage and note. I could have Sherry Shoquest, who has been the administrator of the program, come back with that information.
So the gap is to the developer, right?
Correct.
And so
the value gap is to the
70,000
developer. Correct.
Right. So what is it costing them to build a house?
Typically, the average cost in Green Homes North Round 5, the average cost for a new construction home was $260,000. Total development costs, frankly, ranged from $210,000 to $315,000. And the reason for that range is because a variety of square footages and bedroom and bathroom makeups were recommended in the most recent funding round. So we had everything from a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house to a 5-bedroom, 2-bath house for larger families.
And then the developer is using the 70,000 to sell the house for 70,000 less?
The developers are all required to sell the houses for their appraised value. The reason why there's a development gap is because the markets in these neighborhoods also vary significantly. So a house in the Jordan neighborhood, for example, might be able to sell for $170,000. That same house in another neighborhood that has a stronger market, like Shingle Creek, might be able to sell for $220,000
or $310,000.
Right.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So it basically, we know it costs about $1.50 or so per foot to build a house, but they're not selling for anywhere near what it's costing to build them. And it's not an excessive cost to build a whole house, by the way, for $1.50 a foot.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And that's part of the reason why we think that it's important to have a $70,000 cap, because we think that it's important to ensure that there are houses that are built in the markets that are weakest, where there's been the most impact from foreclosure and where the market impact has been the greatest.
Well,
that's also where we own the majority of our lots.
Well, we don't want some slab on grade.
Right.
Some horrible thing built for a lot less money just because it's in an impacted area and they can sell it for that price.
Right.
I agree with you. Okay. Other questions, Councilmember Cano?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a question about 18.3, authorizing amendment of home buyer assistance guidelines from $7,500 to $5,000 of assistance for new NSP project commitments. So is this assistance for the homeowner, the future homeowner?
Correct.
Okay, and is there a racial equity commitment to this? Because I know we've talked a lot about how Minneapolis has a very big gap in ownership between people of color and white people. So I'm wondering, is that tailored to address that disparity?
Andrea, could you help me with this one?
I doubt we can say if you're white, you can't buy the house. That'd be my guess.
Madam Chair,
I'm not
members.
saying we should say that. I'm just wondering how we're addressing the disparity.
Sure, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Councilmember Cano. There are several aspects of this that are built into the Green Homes North program. One of them is minority small business owner required subcontracting requirements, and so that's a pretty significant component of Green Homes North. That's what the funds will be used for. Additionally, traditionally a lot of the developers that develop under the Green Homes North program have an extremely strong track record in serving households of color. Habitat for Humanity, for example, they've been a strong partner in Green Homes North. 93% of their home buyers are households of color. And a lot of the other providers that we work with have very similar track records.
Thank you.
Further questions for staff? Comments? Feel free. Seeing none, I'll move the staff recommendation with regard to the two changes noted below in all 4 points. Are there additional comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. Seeing no further business before us, we are adjourned.